Hello, and welcome to yet another episode of the Back to the TARDIS podcast, the podcast where we take a look at every single episode of the 2005 revival of BBC's Doctor Who. I'm Jeff.
I'm Nymphadora.
And I'm fucking hungover.
And this week, we are discussing Series 10, Episode 3, Thin Ice by Sarah Dollard. This episode is Bill's first historical episode, and this episode's real good. This might be a hot take, but I feel like at the bare minimum, the first half, like the pre-Monks trilogy stuff of Series 10, is Capaldi's best work. Outside of like Heaven Sent.
Yeah, I mean, this episode, I don't know if it's like exceptional, but it's really solid stuff. I think it's interesting because season 9 was sort of really the first time where they're consistently pumping out like really good two-parters, because usually it's like back and forth on those, and I think they really got that down there, and I feel like this part of season 10 is really them just like nailing the episodic format for the show.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel like the best way to describe it is them nailing the business as usual part of Doctor Who in a way that I don't think it was nailed since RTD. And again, it just makes me really sad that we only get one season of this and then it's back to fucking shit. Anyways, the other thing that I think is really fascinating about this episode is how it feels like direct do-overs of like two places where they fucked up big time previously, because the setting and the context feels like a do-over of Shakespeare Code. And even though I don't think, like, Bill's Race does occasionally come up, but not super much, but it still feels like a better do-over of it than the Shakespeare Code was. And the bit at the end almost feels like Kill the Moon if it was good.
Yeah.
Also, this is like the fourth fucking space whale, I think.
Is it?
How many have we
Wasn't
had
it
now?
just The Beast Below?
I feel like... No, okay, yeah, I guess Christmas Carol was fish, not whales. Yeah. I feel like there was another space whale somewhere that we're forgetting.
I just know about...
Are you sure you're not thinking of Star Trek 4?
I've never seen Star Trek 4.
Okay.
You need to fix
Watch
that.
Star Trek 4.
But yeah, no, this was really, as you said, Jeff, this is good business as usual stuff. It gave me a lot of like recollection about Series 1, just in how for the majority of those episodes, aside from like some isolated arcs, it's very much just like the Doctor's excited to have someone to like show about and like do his thing with, like get back into the rhythm, and that's kind of very unique in up to this point in Capaldi's run. Series 8 was very much like kind of like a personal like character arc that he needed to get through, and of course Series 9 dealt with like Clara, so it's not like he's showing just like any person about. So it's like, yeah, this is good, comfortable vibes. Of course, we find out later about Missy, but like until that point happens, it's like,
yeah,
it's just like, it's just good, solid Doctor Who. And
good wholesome Christian fun.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So yeah. Also, did anybody else remember the fact that this episode just straight up fucking murks a kid? I did not remember that. And I was like, holy shit.
I don't know. That it... Go ahead.
Yeah, I didn't remember a lot about this episode, but I wasn't surprised by that.
Yeah.
It feels like it's the kind of thing that they have not done very often.
I remember that it happened. I didn't recall that it happened like on screen.
I mean,
Yeah.
technically, we don't see the fish eat him.
Yeah, but it is pretty blatant, and also the bit that gets me every time is how like he's fucking like running he's like trying to get his screwdriver, and this kid just gets dragged under, and he grabs the screwdriver, and it takes him a second to even realize like, oh shit.
I will admit,
Like, that's fucking crazy.
like, I will admit I'm pretty sympathetic to Bill in that moment, because, like, he does straight up just grab the screwdriver out of his hand.
Yeah, no, he does. It's fucking, it's nuts. It's like, holy shit.
I'm like, bro, that's like season 8 you. That's a little harsh.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I love this bit at the beginning where they're talking about like the consequences of time travel, and he makes like the joke about like, tell that to Pete, and she's like, wait, who the fuck is that? Like, he's just like fucking with. It's so good. It feels like, again, like, actually a lot of this stuff feels like it's actually directly lifted from Shakespeare Code, because I think Shakespeare Code both has the hey wait I'm black thing, and then also the butterfly effect conversation, and both of them feel like they're done better here.
Also more minor continuity nods, I'm pretty sure. No, yeah, 12 references like coming here with River, with his wife.
Huh. Oh yeah, he does.
Which
yeah.
I'm pretty sure happens all the way back in A Good Man Goes to War, of all things, to tie up continuity nods from. So just small bits like that really add to like.
Feels like, again, the it might just be because we had so many seasons with Clara, but I think even compared to Amy and Rory, like, Bill feels like a noticeable shifting of a dynamic. Like, Clara wasn't necessarily going to let the doctor's bullshit slide, but Bill very directly just kind of asks out of the box questions and is just like, hey, what the fuck? And just, yeah, every week I'm just really bummed that we only get the one season. That's fucked up. The kids are all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not really there much.
Worst.
But they don't manage to be like, oh, these are some fucking child actors, which like happens a lot of the time. I find
and I think they were utilized little enough that I was just like, yeah, okay, these are some people, these are characters.
Yep.
Yeah. The bad guy in this is just, I know writers who use subtlety and they're all cowards. He's just like, yeah, I'm a piece of shit. What about it?
I mean, he's wonderful for what he needs to be, which is just the most egregious 1814 British man imaginable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so
the
good.
chances of that actor finding this podcast are 0, but good job, sir. You did a great job of playing a racist. That it was very easy to cheer for you when you absolutely got your shit rocked. It was great.
I believe you accurately portrayed your culture.
Yeah, the fucking bit where he's like, "No, let me handle this. We need to be subtle and diplomatic," and then he just fucking decks the guy like 30 seconds into a conversation. No. He's just like, "No, fuck this." Actually,
No, it's
Never
just so
mind.
good because it's such an obvious bait and switch. Like it's clearly leading up to that, but it's just the tempo of it is just such perfect comedy that it just nails it perfectly. And he was like,
Yeah.
"Well, that guy's definitely human, isn't it?"
Yeah, this is the genesis point of an Arco 12ism, and I'm here for it.
Yes.
Yeah, I do appreciate this scene. I think nowadays it would get all the rage, reactionary
Oh, I think it did back then
content.
too.
It
I'm pretty
probably
sure.
did.
Yeah.
It definitely probably did. I just appreciate if shows are gonna like deal with like historical settings and like have people of color in them, which I think you probably should. I think generally the two best approaches are like basically doing what Doctor Who, what this episode did in a watered down version, which is to be like honest about it, or you can go the Bridgerton route and say like this is just like a fun sandbox story to let characters play around in,
Yeah.
and the race doesn't matter, because representation is cool. Like I think those are the two acceptable like spheres to be in, and again, Shakespeare Code. Well, I don't necessarily like have all the qualms of it, aside from like the writer being dog shit. Like, yeah, the whole like, oh, just act like you own the place is very much like the most white privileged thing the Doctor has ever said.
Yeah, that's not. Yeah, that's not how that fucking works.
I do think a reason why this episode works very well is because it cuts up it cuts both ways, because there's sort of like she brings up her fears at the beginning, and then there's the immediate like afterwards commentary like, oh, Regency England is a bit blacker than they show in the movies, isn't it? Like,
yeah,
and so there's just like
talking about like, yeah, they were here, they were totally there,
and there's this acknowledgement that they were present and just like on the most part chilling and living their lives in London, because yeah, they were. But then also there's that acknowledgement of like, oh yeah, and then there's like these guys who are just like egregiously awful also. And I think that's a good balance.
Yeah.
Versus, I mean, this is very obviously an episode that's responding to the Shakespeare Code, which isn't surprising considering Capaldi's relationship to that guy. And it's just clearly like, yeah, we kind of fucked up that time here. Let's do it better this time.
Yeah. And to give this next era a modicum of credit, because it's going to need all the help it can get. I don't think 13's era. I don't think Chibnall ever quite pulls that like Shakespeare Code levels of like erasure and bullshit. But I will say the outrage is like way less. Or I guess the condemnation is very more noticeably like tame and neoliberal. Like, yeah, in this one, like, yeah, there's a sci-fi component, but like this guy being racist, like, in addition to all the other horrible shit he's doing, like classist, like all the whole intersectionality thing, like that's bad too. And in Rosa, it's just a white racist from the future. And that's
God, Rosa I can't believe I can't like Rosa sucks so much.
Facts. That was a bit of an aside, but yeah, no, I think this strikes a good balance of appropriate representation that's not just like trauma porn. It's like genuinely like, oh yeah, we were here. And then anarcho 12ism, direct action.
Yeah. Based. Just fucking deck that guy. Fuck him. It's great. and I also I like them just being like it's not even like a this came here recently. It's just, yeah, this was here the whole time. Like nobody, it's been here so long that nobody even remembers how long it's been here.
It's interesting because it's kind of like, do we ever find out if it's an alien or not?
I
I don't
don't
think he ever
know.
says it's an alien. And that's
Yeah.
interesting. It just sort of like leaves that inconclusive and like, I don't know, there's a cool sort of like Eldritch London vibe to that. It's just like, yeah, there's this monster that's just been living in the Thames for like nobody knows how long, and now it's gone, but like it was there for like centuries.
This is actually a
Yeah.
Resident Evil prequel. Um, I forgot to say.
God. Christ. Um I also think really, really amazing, like really amazing 12 speech here. Just so great. Also, I like it is Crimson Horror levels of just when he says like, wow, that was a amazingly crafted speech and would move anyone with an ounce of compassion. Unfortunately, I don't have any.
Yeah.
Like I saw some people. I just out of curiosity, I watched Stu's video on this episode just to see, you know, what people at the time thought of this episode. Um and he basically goes like, I think the villain's like a bit too cartoonish, and usually, you know, the idea with villains is that they shouldn't believe that they're doing villainy. And I'm like, no, that's not how that works. There are plenty of people who are just like, yeah, no, I'm a piece of shit. I know, I don't care. Like that's yeah. It's basically what a sociopath is. Uh and then yeah, they just they go and get the it they I also will say, like, we're back to like clever utilization, and the really clever thing about the way that it's all written is that they don't ever have to like really actively 100% clearly show in full the monster, the monster or the whale or whatever it is. um they can totally just like hide it through the water stuff, and like, oh, it's below the ice, ooh. um and I think that works really
Yeah, I
great.
think not seeing it works better
um
because like the CGI is a little,
yeah,
you know, rough around the edges, so it's
yeah,
scarier when you don't see the whole thing.
yeah. Also, I just realized, I remembered, there is another space whale. It's just not in Doctor Who. It's in Torchwood.
Damn it.
And that space whale is also used, exploited for profit. So that's funny. But yeah, that's where the other space whale is. And then I have to say, like, one of the most fucking based, I love the ending of this being like, yeah, he falls in and gets eaten by the space whale. So the doctor forges documents to claim that one of these like kids in the street is this guy's long lost heir. So they just get all his shit in a fancy house. And apparently whatever he did was so bulletproof that whenever the real heir showed up, they were like, no, it's this guy. Get the fuck out of here. Um And then at the very end with Nardole is finally actually starting to show up again. And it's very funny how he just shows up and is just immediately like, dude, come on.
It's funny because he doesn't even notice at first. He gets like a whole minute
Yeah,
and then
he just
just
walks
like
in and looks
hands
up.
on hips. Wait a minute, Doctor, did you go off planet?
Yeah.
It's great.
It's great.
Pull out his mansplain, manipulate male wife on 12. I feel like
he literally has been a male wife multiple times. I feel like that's a thing that has happened.
Good for him.
There's like what, like 2 or 3 different occasions where he's just like fucks off in the middle of the episode and comes back and is like, yeah, I just did a whole bunch of stuff off screen. Yeah, I think so. Yeah. And then his ending is, I believe, he gets a bunch of he ends up like creating like a massive dynasty with the people on the Cyberman ship, I believe. Anyways, so yeah, it's like before we kind of ran into the thing of like, oh, there's not super much to talk about just because there's nothing of substance here. And this, it's just so well executed that it's just like, yeah, this is really good. This is really good. This is all executed very well. I will say, it really does it manages to make a good sense of place with like limited sets in 45 minutes. Like the general like locations of these in terms of like amount of locations in the episodes isn't that much, but they're all like pretty, like they mesh together to make a really good environment that feels real.
Yeah, I would have more to say if I weren't like dying now.
Understandable. Hey there, gang. This is Editing Geoff here in editing. So it turns out that Nymphodora's file, something weird happened during the export. So about the last 10 minutes of their audio just kind of vanished. So I'll be filling in here just to finish the rest of this. This will be our own partially reconstructed episode, just like Doctor Who. Anyways, in this bit, we were talking about how the core moral choice of the episode harkened back to Kill the Moon, but was a lot better executed here. Yeah, as I said, yeah, because the ending there is kind of like, well, hey, like, what do you want to do with this? And it feels like here when he says like you need to make I will not make this choice for you. I serve at the pleasure of the human race. It feels far better executed than when he does that to Clara. Like far better executed. I feel like also like it really makes up for it because I remember, if I remember correctly, when we covered Kill the Moon, one of my biggest complaints about that episode is that the Doctor was right in saying like, no, I'm not going to make this decision for you, but they treated it like he was in the wrong and that he fucked up by doing that. And I'm like, no, that's not his decision to make. He's not human. And yeah, so I think part of that, I definitely think that part of that probably has some stuff to do with how it's executed in Kill the Moon, how he just kind of brusquely does it in a much more stressful situation. But here, it feels way better done. So yeah, that's about all I have to talk about. Assuming that that's all that you have. That's about it for what you have to talk about.
My brain is empty.
Okay. One thing I will say before we move on to ratings is how annoyed I am that like I think we just got a release date locked for the fucking special in October, locked down like in the last week. Like just now, and it's like less than a month till it airs. Like fucking come on. But you know, we're almost done, guys. It's almost over. The Chibnall era is almost fucking over. Anyways, so yeah, let's move on to ratings, I guess. Yeah, this is just an incredibly solid little episode. Like it feels like we've had so many of like, here's their first episode, here's their first trip into the future, here's their first trip into the past. We've had so many of those at this point, but it feels really great to still have some where they can just still keep that quality up, even though this is like the 4th or 5th time they've done this setup now. Yeah, it's great. It's just great. I'd say it's a very, very solid, like, A to A+.
Editing Geoff here again. Nymphadora also really liked the episode a lot. Thought it was a grand old time, just like I did. Super consistent, super well done. Fun little look back at things that were done bad and does them better, and gave it, similarly to me, a solid A.
Yeah, it feels like really, really well done for the 10th season, actually. It feels like, and this was intended to be a soft reboot, and like we've talked about how that's kind of fucking stupid for Moffat's last season, but I think just backing off and asking how does it serve as that soft reboot, I think it does a really good job.
It's a good episode. Yeah, 8.75.
Yeah. All right. Next time, we will be discussing Series 10, Episode 4, Knock Knock. I don't really have any preconceived or preconceptions about that episode, other than I'm probably going to point and go, hey, that person's a voice act to major character in FF14. Because that's like all that episode has for notability for me right now. But until then, you can follow the podcast on Twitter at B2TARDISPod. You can support us on Patreon for a number of benefits, such as early access to episodes, the ability to listen in live to episodes being recorded, and potentially even the ability to guest star upon an episode of your choosing. I'm Geoff. You can follow me on Twitter at WheatleyDL.
Nymphadora can be followed on Twitter at Ahura Borealis.
I'm hungover, and you can follow us at FacerPhilia on Twitter.com.
And we will see you all next week.